Hey y'all! Alright, so I wanted to make this video to kind of explain why I'm not competing this year and what I'm going to be doing instead. So as you guys may have seen through my posts, and I've kind of talked about this a lot now with my glute hip injury issue, whatever we want to call it, I've been dealing with that since the last week of September last year. So training hasn't been 100% since then. So for me, as a IFBB bikini pro, I'm still on the smaller side muscularity. I'm bigger like in structure, I'm taller, and I just have like a larger frame, but I don't necessarily have like the muscularity like fill out everything. So particularly in my glutes and my hamstrings and my shoulders, which is obviously like the bikini girl muscles. But in all seriousness, I do, need to work on those areas. So for me, getting lean enough for a show is very challenging. And even last year when I thought, I was at a really good place, it still wasn't lean enough for what they're looking for. So I need to get leaner and I need to get bigger. So not training 100% and not being able to push myself all the way was absolutely not gonna work for contest prep. So I had a really interesting conversation with Cliff actually before I hired him. And this is what really got me excited to work with him and just have like this new goal for this year since I wasn't going to be competing. So for me, there is a very distinct point in prep where everything's like up, down, okay. And then it's like, you get to this point and then it's like fucking hell and like you're gonna die. And I know that sounds really, obviously it's dramatic, but towards the end, a certain body fat level for me is just very unsustainable, right? So everything at that point gets affected. My work, my relationships, my focus, my energy levels, and that's all stuff that just comes with the territory of prep. So it's totally understandable. But I can't obviously function on that if I'm not dieting. And there's really no point in me being that lean if I'm not prepping, right? So when I explained to him like there's this very like two sides to like my prep, he was like, well, for certain clients, we'll try to get below that point where it's like unsustainable and then kind of maintain their reverse out of there and then start around that point next year for prep, which was really interesting to me and I never thought of that. And it was just really like an intriguing way of taking advantage of the time that I have right now. So I've been in a surplus since last year. And in Italy, like literally, as you guys know, I went right into a caloric surplus, and not immediately, well, probably immediately, definitely immediately in Italy, but for a while I was a little bit more stringent, like in the very beginning, and then I just kind of, some days I tracked, some days I didn't, some days I was more careful with food, some days I ate whatever I wanted, it just kind of depended. So my intake was not very consistent, but I would say after the first few weeks of contest prep, after like that first month, it was definitely higher and I was in some kind of a surplus. So I'm in a good place metabolically as far as like I've taken time off of dieting and I've eaten a good amount, but I just wasn't as, consistent as I could have been, of course. So we needed to kind of have a little period of that, but I knew that I was ready, that I could diet. So the first 2 weeks of working together, we were just at a higher intake, but, just being consistent with it. And my body responded pretty nice. I dropped just a little bit, but I had also just come back from a trip when I started. So I kind of maintained there. And then we made 2 little drops after that actually, but they were small enough that I didn't really feel them. And my body is, there's 2 people, there's some people that you'll drop a little bit of food and they'll drop weight. And then there's other people who are a little bit more adaptive. So for me, I kind of fall somewhere in the middle of that. I would definitely say that I am adaptive in that sense, but the calories were so high and I know my body that I'm just not gonna lose weight on that no matter what. As much as I'd love to, there's just no way I'm gonna lose, a bunch of weight on super, super high calories. Everyone's a little bit different. I just know myself, but I did, kind of tighten up here and there a little bit. My training's also been a little bit more consistent. I've been feeling a little bit better, so that's also really exciting. So for the most part, the first month was just kind of like getting back on track, being more consistent most days. In that time, I'd actually traveled 3 times in a month, and I wasn't perfect every single day, absolutely not. But for the most part, I was on track and I was a lot more consistent than I had been. So this past week, we actually made a larger drop, and now I'm at an intake that I, can feasibly see myself losing a little bit on. It's still high-ish, but it's, it's not anything that's like so exorbitant, right, that I can't like drop any weight on. So I made a little bit of progress, tightened up a little bit, but the goal here is not to like drop rapid amounts of weight at one time. And also I am, this isn't for a prep, right? This is just a diet and I'm trying to get to a certain place before we stop this diet and start to reverse. So it's actually a really unique approach. I've never done this before, so I'm really happy. And I told Cliff straight out, you know, listen, this is not a prep, so there are going to be days where I'm adherent, but I'm not 100% adherent. There's going to be days when I travel and things aren't going to be 100%. There's going to be days when I want to go out and have a drink, because you guys know I like doing that. So, and that's totally okay for me, because this isn't a competition prep. So it's more of just like a lifestyle diet to get to a certain place. But of course I'm putting my effort into it, and I'm not just gonna like, otherwise I would just eat a lot more and then just maintain. So I am putting a good amount of effort into this, but when things do come up and they're not 100% perfect, it's not like I have the show deadline that is right there that I have to worry about necessarily. So in the short time working together, I've really had a great experience with Cliff. And he's very detail oriented, and which is exciting, and any kind of questions I have about the process he will inform me on. And just because, like I said, this has been a little bit different than what I'm used to, I normally will make larger cuts like straight from the beginning versus just kind of like these little ones and then just kind of see how I respond. But again, we have time and there's no necessarily deadline on this, so it makes things a little bit different. But in any case, he changed up some things that are different for me, a little bit different supplement recommendations, and also just meal timing in general. He does a really good job of kind of breaking down his suggestions for meal timing. And I mean, the biggest reason why I hired him was because I wanted to learn more for myself and for my clients. As a coach, I wanted to learn more. And of course I could diet myself, like duh. But I wanted to, learning from other people who are as well accomplished as Cliff is something that I'm always trying to do. So I was like, what better than to hire him to be my coach? So just different recommendations and different ways that he structures things. So I've already learned from that, which is exciting, and I can't wait to see how the process continues to go. So at this point, I have 6 normal days and 1 refeed day, and I am not doing any cardio. Unless I sprinkle like a little bit in, just like walking, if I want to get like a little bit of a walk in, or if I'm just feeling like I want to get a little bit of activity, but nothing like super structured. And for the most part, I've just been putting all my effort into training hard, and that's what he wants me to do. So interesting setup. Training's been a little different too. We have some kind of training outline for me, like a program, and then most weeks I've been following that, and then some days if I'm like want to change things up a little bit, I do, and depending on how I feel and where I'm at, all these variables. But for the most part, having this structure and having new guidelines has been really interesting for me. And again, I'm trying to do this so I can learn for myself and for my clients. So this is something that maybe if you guys are in a position like me, maybe not this exact same situation, but maybe you are like, it's July and you're like, I'm not going to compete this year, but I've been in a surplus for a while, and I don't necessarily, I want to get ready for next year. What should I do? So this is just something to think about, maybe do a little bit of a small cut and then maintain from there and then diet again. Or just continue your surplus and continue training hard. For a lot of people, I actually suggest that, but for me, I had been in a surplus for many months, and I do know for me, the levels of body fat that I need to get to on the pro stage is a lot more extreme than my body wants to go to, so I have to kind of do these things to get me there. Last year I was lean, but not lean enough, and I know that one thing Cliff can do is get me lean, so I am really excited for that to be pushed to a new level, and hopefully I will finally have some tie-ins. That is like the goal for my whole life, is to have a hamstring tie-in, but I can't do that if I don't have enough muscle either. So part of this is, dieting, but not taking away from training and, training hard. So it's a balancing act, you guys. So if you want to try something like this, I would encourage you to, but I would be honest, most people aren't in the position that they've probably taken enough time off of dieting. I've taken off from December up until, really last week was the only week that was like challenging so far with like macro wise. So from December all the way through June, I was in a surplus. So if you're in that kind of a situation, maybe this is perfect for you. But I would say that for most people, you probably haven't been in an off-season period, a time spent away from dieting period long enough. So that's what I'm doing, y'all. I just kind of want to give everyone like a little bit of an update and just, give my reasons why I wasn't competing. And I think that it's valid to talk about because I love competing, and I know a lot of people here do too, and it can become very, very consuming, and there's really a time and a place for everything. So if you're in a spot where you are, looking good and you're qualified and you want to push it, like 100% go for it, because you never know what's going to happen like the next year, right? You might be like, oh, I'm going to put it off till next year, but you don't know what's going to happen. So for me though, I knew that I wasn't in the position to push myself completely, and I know I needed to get better. Like, I didn't want to just step on stage to step on stage. So I think that's something that a lot of people need to hear. It's the truth. It sucks. You can do well but you're not gonna do great or like be better than your next time if you don't give yourself enough of a break. I mean, maybe not, maybe you look perfect, but chances are there's always something that you can improve, and the only way truly to improve is to take your time. So that's just like a message to everyone, you know, besides kind of catching everyone up what I'm doing. Basically why I'm not competing are for all those reasons. So if this is you in any capacity of the sense, hopefully this helped you or helped someone. If you're a coach, you know, you can kind of relay this information to one of your clients. But just remember guys, the stage is always going to be there, and making actual improvements is so important. So make sure you take the time for that in whatever capacity that looks like. And yeah, hopefully this was helpful. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate you guys so much, and have a great week.